2 interesting facts about a banana.
Okay, so there are lots of different types of sports. You've got individual sports, team sports, but the thing they all need is they all need an element of fitness, and that's where the principles of training come into play. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is progression. Progression is basically when you make your training more difficult. First part of progression we're going to look at is frequency. So frequency is the amount of time you train. So for example, if you're doing one session, if you wanted to use progression, you'd maybe do 2 sessions a week. Intensity in relation to progression is basically how hard you're working within a session. So if you increase how hard you work over time, that will result in good progression. So when you've got is time is basically increasing the length of your session. So if you're working for 10 minutes, next session you might do 15 minutes. Type refers to the type of training you're doing. And the last one is adherence. So adherence is basically meaning sticking to the program. Obviously if you don't follow the program, stick to it, chances of you being successful are minimal. So in a nutshell, progression is basically making your training harder over time. In a nutshell. Okay, specificity means the training you're doing should match the sport you're training for. For example, someone like Lionel Messi, who is quick, agile, he needs to be quick and agile with a football, so his training will involve him doing those exercises with a ball, because it makes it more relevant to the sport he's doing, which is football. It also relates to the physical training you're doing. A cyclist, for example, will be looking to make physical adaptations to their leg muscles because they're the primary muscles they're going to be using for cycling. So it's important when you're doing specificity that your training matches the sport you're doing. Next thing we're looking at is reversibility and regression. Reversibility and regression can occur when you have such things as a suspension, injury, illness. Basically it means you can't follow your training program, and as a result you lose the physical, mental and skill aspects of your training. So for example, if you broke your leg and you had a sustained period of time where you couldn't train, when you come back to train you have to then rebuild the muscles around that leg until you were back to where you were before you got yourself injured. If you look at the current situation with COVID-19, for example, if the football season was to start tomorrow, it wouldn't be possible or fair on the players because they would have lost all the physical aspects of their training and the skill aspects because they haven't trained for such a sustained period of time. So that would be an example of reversibility and regression. Next thing we're going to look at is moderation. Every individual is different and how they respond to training will be different. Those factors are age, gender, environment and experience. A person's age will have an effect and determine how hard they could train and certain skills they could perform. Environment is important because if you don't have access to certain types of equipment, that can affect your training. Obviously hot and cold, that can affect training as well. Experience will have a determined factor on how and what type of training they can do. And gender will also play a role in the type of training an athlete can perform. Variance is really important in a good training program. Variance ensures that the athlete does not become bored. If an athlete becomes bored, they lose motivation, then they're less likely to adhere to the training program. So variance basically just means mixing it up. So if you're a swimmer, you do lots of swimming, there's nothing wrong. A good training program might have you out on a bike one day, just doing something different, keeping the mind stimulated. That will lead to a good training program. Motivation plays a massive part in a training program. So if you have good variance, you'll have the key factor of a training program, which fundamentally should be fun. It might be difficult, but if you keep it fun, an athlete is more likely to be engaged and stick to the training program, thus having greater benefits and development at the end. Next lesson we'll be looking at aerobic and anaerobic exercise, and we'll explain what those two things are. I don't live in the woods, by the way. It's just nice to get out rather than be sat at the desk talking to you.